Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Hope Harbor Zoo. Hope you guys are all having the most wonderful of wonderful days. As always, I'm your host for today. My name is Leaf, and it's so great to welcome you guys back over here as we do a small little in-between habitat. I always love to make these. They're always so much more appealing to me than like the big grandiose habitats, because you're doing something that really most people would skip over for like the big ticket animals. But usually these are the exhibits both in real life and in Planet Zoo that I love the most. So today we're making a habitat for the gray crowned crane, and they would also be mixed with the African spurred tortoise. Big shout out to ZSU staff for the recent event that we got. Let me actually check the name of that. Because I forget the name of it. But we essentially just had an event that was basically get any starter animal that you want. And it was an international event. New year, new zoo. So you would essentially go in and ask for whatever animals that, you would really want out of, like, the ZSU team, that would be considered quote-unquote starter animals as of today, I guess. So I was able to get, and if I could pull this up correctly, let me find it over here. So Hope Harbor Zoo was able to secure Japanese macaques, Linnaeus' two-toed sloth, snowshoe hares, which I've already built for. I love their little exhibit, but it really didn't warrant like an entire episode. 7 domestic dogs, German shepherds. If you check out my press room, we have a cute little post about that over there. And we also got 1.1 gray crown crane, which we're building for today. They didn't give me Gerald though, unfortunately, so that's kind of sad. Now, I'm essentially using those same conservation slat pieces as before, and just making these new walls with them. So I kind of double them up on each other so that they're a lot more of a solid mass. And I really want this exhibit to feel a lot more clean than the rest of the habitat. So we kind of have this decorate the exterior of the habitat, and it looks super awesome because of that. So you can see we're building a little bit in a ditch right now. It's just the kind of effect that I wanted out of this habitat, because the holding would be connected back to the giraffe barn, and you can see the doors kind of like linked right over there. And I do have this little bit of a holding stage area for the cranes as well as the tortoises when they aren't on show. So they'd essentially be chilling back there, just out of the guest eyes. Possibly if they're breeding or whatnot, we would need to separate the male from the female, because they would get a little bit aggressive. I'm not sure if they would get aggressive towards each other or if they would get aggressive towards any other animal in the exhibit itself. I'm not sure if they would really mess with the tortoise all that much, but maybe if it starts to like hump the egg or something. I'm not really sure. But you can see we're kind of continuing the lovely work that my good friend Forge did for the draft barn over there. Over here as well, and just making sure that it feels nice and flush with that little extension that we made. And yeah, I'm just super happy with it. It's just a really nice little exhibit. So I essentially kind of repeat those same fence works right over here, and I have it stop right over there, just because I wanted it to feel like you're looking down into this nice big area. And it's kind of surrounded on both sides, but that's totally fine because we work on this a little bit of a, I don't know what you would actually call it. I guess like, holding, so I really don't, elevation guard. I'm not sure. We'll see it in a little bit. But I take a very unique approach with it. But for the time being, I'm trying to get the cranes into the actual habitat themselves and editing the null barrier of the habitat just to make sure that they don't escape or they don't do anything weird in there. So I'm kind of pushing those out to the borders of the actual habitat linings, just making sure that they're able to stay in there. And I'm like, where the hell are my cranes? And it turns out they started to get delivered, but they never actually made their way over there. And you'll notice in a little bit that they're still not in the habitat because they're in that little holding area. I really got to make a door over there for them, that they could actually access. This is why I was super excited about. So a lot of the times when you do see these large, tall, elevated areas, they use these, I really don't know what you would call it, but they're essentially kind of like concrete wall guards, And I'm using upside down flower pots for them because they really do fit that same vibe that I'm looking for. And they have a really awesome flexi-color channel. So I make the top one just a little bit darker than like the bottom rim, and it looks super awesome because of that. So I make sure that they're flush with each other, and I kind of have them kind of hug the rest of the terrain making their way throughout here. And it just looks super awesome from below. I don't know, I just really like it. I assume the cranes would not be able to climb that because I mean, they can kind of fly, but they're not really that well versed at flying. At Roger Williams, and I'm using this from personal experience, our cranes are able to fly. They actually flew right at me one time, just like right at glass. It was super fun. But it's not a kind of a closed-in aviary, because, I don't know, just an exhibit like that in this area would not really fly well with me. I know, pun completely intended. But no, I just thought it would look kind of tacky if we kind of like throw a bunch of netting over here. Plus, I hate to do netting, so that's why I'm not doing that. But I'm kind of continuing over that planted mulch kind of look, just because I needed some fake terrain pieces over there, just to make sure that feels a lot more coherent with the rest of the area. I think I'm going to lower these fences too. Obviously, the guests would not try and kind of make their way into this habitat because cranes are quite literally murder birds. I would not want to mess with them ever, and I hope all my guests over here at Hope Harbor wouldn't either. So I kind of have that continuing on over there, and I kind of cover this up just a little bit with some temperate rocks, because who the hell wants to go throughout here and do custom terrain things? I really don't. If I could throw a rock on top of it, it's totally fine by me. So I throw a few of those guys all throughout here, just making sure it feels nice and natural. And if we ever do want to add an aviary to the right of this habitat, we totally have the ability to. If I do end up getting like something like a hornbill or something, or rather another hornbill, because I already have hornbills, I could just throw them right there. Also, I wanted a little bit of water in this habitat itself, just because I felt like it needed something like that. So I include just a smidgen of water down here, and I make it into a plaster pool. I think I want to change out the colors. I'm not really too happy with the color that I landed on, but maybe I'll do that later down the line once I'm actually feeling it. But I have it be nice and circular because, of course, we got to make it nice and, you know, very easy on the eyes. So we put that down there, and you can see there's a little bit of water poking out the sides, but we just use our handy dandy little mulch pieces as a way to kind of cover that up a little bit. It's a really nice natural way to kind of integrate some darker color pieces of soil into your habitat. And I make sure that it follows through throughout the entire rest of the habitat, just so that it doesn't look awkward just in the middle of the habitat. It at least has a little bit more purpose when it's kind of spread throughout the habitat, so it looks a lot more nicer. So that's essentially what I am working on over there, and also adding in a few more pieces of rock, just as a way to help this whole area really feel a little bit more natural. And it just looks super awesome at the end of it. It just feels like a nice natural little pit that these birds would very much enjoy their time in. I throw a few enrichment pieces over here, and if anyone out there, this is a public outcry, has any ideas for bird enrichment, specifically for cranes, let me know. I put in the mirror piece, which is very beneficial for birds, apparently, because they like to peck at it, they like to look at it, it makes them feel like they're in a bigger flock. At least for flamingos, that's how that works. For cranes, I'm not really sure, because they're very territorial. But I add a few of these little doors by Masani, I believe it is. Really awesome builder. Really awesome pieces on the workshop. Please go check them out. But I had a few of their doors throughout there just for our keepers and for our cranes respectively. And I add a few more pieces of foliage throughout here, just making sure it feels nice and cohesive within the rest of the habitat, making sure that, you know, the area feels like it's a lot more built up than it actually is. Because keep in mind, Hope Harbor Zoo is a very big island, and I really wanted to make sure that, you know, we're taking into account, like, you know, making the most out of our space, but also trying to take up as much space as possible, because everything is so apart from each other that I want to make sure that, you know, everything feels like it has a purpose, everything feels like it's being used. So yeah, adding a few arrowwood bushes in there, and also, again, this is something I brought up in the Aoudad habitat from before, this is in like a little bit of a trench area. This is in a little bit of a valley. So naturally when it does rain, and this is something I always recommend for any builders out there, or anyone who is hoping to build a little bit more realistically, as it rains, imagine a valley. And the water trickles down from all corners of the valley to go right into that centralized area. That is why you get so much vegetation, especially green vegetation, in those areas. It's a lot more dense with foliage. Forgive me, my sinuses are going out the wazoo. But you got a lot more foliage down there. You got a lot more ivy. You got a lot more weeds and stuff like that. So that's kind of the vibes I want to kind of put throughout there. And I also put a couple of those cork oak trees down there just because I felt like this would be a nice shady area, and especially for our tortoises, we want to make sure that they have enough shade and they have enough light down there too. So it's just very nice. I'm completely retconning that because I got the tortoises after I made this habitat. Isn't that the swankiest thing in the world? So I'm adding a few guys down there, adding a few pieces of dead foliage as well, just because, not every single area is going to be as lush as the next one. Maybe the soil quality is a little bit different in some of these areas than others. And also adding our handy dandy little barriers, not barriers, but curbs. But that's really it, my friends. Few short cinematics today, but I hope you guys are able to understand that. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You guys are always the best. I wish you guys the happiest of happiest days. Not sure what day this is going to come out, but I hope it's happy nonetheless. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Always is a pleasure, and I can't wait to see you all in the next episode. Take care, and goodbye.